As Lisa drove away from the Darby house, she wondered if her relief was all in her head. She saw Darby's machine do something that was very dramatic. The whole thing was so theatrical. That's the word that popped into her head. It was theatrical. Dr. Darby did a wonderful job of building up tension and reassurance in equal measure, which ended in a crescendo of noise and smoke. Of course, she felt better. He had induced the placebo effect in her. For the whole drive home, Lisa teetered between thinking that she had just been fooled and believing that her life had been saved. As she parked in front of her apartment, a sudden realization gave her pause. It took her a half an hour to drive to Darby's place. It had taken her 15 minutes to drive back. Had she hit any red lights on the way home? Lisa had a moment of panic, thinking that she might have been so preoccupied that she had run several red lights, but that seemed unlikely. She just had the easiest drive across town ever. Feeling chipper, Lisa grabbed her bags and walked into her building, humming along as she walked up the stairs to the third floor. And that's when she knew it in her bones that something had changed. "Rosie?" Lisa gasped. There on the doormat, she found that her orange tabby was curled up, waiting for her to come home. "Oh, sweet baby," she cooed as she scooped up the purring cat. "I knew you'd come home." In the weeks that followed, her life began to turn around in tangible ways. Lisa was able to reconcile with at least a few of her old friends. She made a good case for being a different person and had a convincing spiel about having grown a lot lately. She hadn't really changed at all, but she had to tell them something that didn't involve lifting curses. Nobody would believe that. One of her friends was able to put in a good word for her with a company that her uncle owned, and within a few more weeks she was able to get back to work. The bills that had been piling up started to diminish, and she was able to catch up on her rent. As time passed, her social and material well-being improved until she was feeling like her old self again. Layers of anxiety and dread peeled away, day after day, as she slowly approached the life she once had before the Vegas trip. All the while, Dr. Darby would periodically reach out to get updates on her life and ensure that his treatment on the rock had really worked. Every few weeks, he'd send a text asking for details on what had and had not improved. At first, she was enthusiastic in her honesty. She told him everything about the remarkable change in her circumstances. But as time went on, her responses were increasingly vague. The immense relief she had once felt was fleeting, as Darby's treatment merely turned her life back to normal. It was so easy to slip back into her old existence and take all of the growth and repair for granted. She could forget about the hell that she had once been in. And when Lisa wasn't in hell, Darby's miraculous fix seemed kind of banal. It was an easy fix after all. It only took a few minutes, and Lisa started to feel that it did not justify the price tag. So long as she kept her responses vague, and Darby did not know how much better off she was, he would take the hint and lower the price. He did no such thing. He never even hinted at a discount, which Lisa found infuriating. She thought, as far as that weird creep knew, her progress had stalled out, and she was still having a hard time. But Darby wouldn't budge on the price. Instead, his little text reminders grew terse and more frequent. He was obviously losing patience with her, and likely saw right through what she was trying to do. Lisa didn't really care, however. She did not think the agreement they had was legally binding. After all, it wasn't like the law recognized pseudoscientific treatments on inanimate objects as anything legitimate. It would be as if someone hired a shaman to exorcise their haunted house and refused to pay when they kept seeing ghosts. The shaman can't take his grievance to small claims court. The government doesn't dwell in the world of subjective experience and unprovable claims. The shaman can't prove that the exorcism worked, and the homeowner can't prove that it didn't work. Likewise, there was nothing Darby could legally do to make Lisa pay him a single dime. So all she had to do was wait him out. And as she approached 6 months without any freaky curse phenomena in her life, Lisa thought she was in the clear as Darby's messages began to drop off. She was feeling pretty confident in her petty victory after she had gone about 2 weeks without hearing from Dr. Darby. Until one day, Darby reached out to her with a little reminder that was totally unrelated to payment. "Hey Lisa, I'd like to schedule that 6-month checkup." She wrote back, "Really?" She wanted to say that any further action would be unnecessary, but then that would be an admission that his treatment had been effective. "It's no extra charge. I always scan the object after 6 months to make sure that the negative energy isn't resurgent in the object." Lisa tried to think back to when they first met. He was making it sound like this checkup was always on the table. Had he mentioned it in the garage? Or in one of their earlier text conversations? She couldn't remember. She was tempted to dismiss the checkup. After all, everything in her life was fine. After some time without responding, Darby texted her again. "Sometimes my treatment doesn't stick, and the object in question needs a little more attention to make the positive continuity permanent." Lisa suddenly felt sick. She remembered how it felt when all her life and efforts were slipping through her fingers like dry sand. She recalled the daily panic and despair that filled every hour. She texted back, "Of course. Do you have any openings today?" "Fingers crossed," Darby said as he held a probe up to the rock and watched the display on the screen of his OCM machine. Lisa stood in the garage with folded arms, biting her lip in dreadful anticipation. "Well, is it safe?" "Nearly so," Darby said as he squinted his eyes through yellow aviators at the screen and scratched a bald spot on his head. "Nearly?" Lisa asked. "I think if I let you leave here with this rock, you'd probably be fine. But I'm seeing a couple things here that I am not familiar with, so just to be safe, I'm going to treat this rock one more time." "All right. Fire away, I guess." Darby went through the same procedure that she had witnessed 6 months before. He put in ear protection, which she took as a cue to cup her hands over her own ears. Darby typed something into the machine and placed a small speaker on the table. He directed it toward the rock before walking up to the machine to adjust the dials. A heavy whine filled the air until a fuse blew in the OCM, and smoke wafted up to the ceiling. Darby and Lisa uncovered their ears. and Darby gave her a thumbs up as he read the display. "So we're done?" Lisa asked. "We sure are," Darby replied. "Take the rock when you're ready, and I guess I'll be hearing from you." Lisa tried not to roll her eyes. She realized that this whole thing was just another attempt to squeeze money out of her. "Of course," she said with a smile. "I'll be in touch soon." But she was thinking that this dolt wasn't going to get a penny from her. But Darby looked at her with a smirk. "I'm sure you will," he winked. Darby then pulled a small remote from his pocket and pushed a button as the garage door began to roll open. "Okay," she nervously giggled as she pocketed the rock and grabbed her purse. She felt uncomfortable, but she didn't know why. She was so caught off guard by their final exchange that she wasn't watching where she was going. As Lisa walked out, her right foot clipped the metal track of the garage door. "Ow! Shit!" she cried as she hopped on one foot for a moment while clutching her throbbing toe. As she took a deep breath and began to walk away, she turned around to look at Dr. Darby, who was smiling and waving to her. What a creep, she thought. Lisa drove home and parked her car before stepping out. And as she approached the apartment, she tripped on the curb. A wave of nauseous pain rolled up her leg and settled in her gut as she began to see stars. Son of a... Ah! Fuck! Her soft tennis shoes did nothing to cushion the blow on her right foot. She sat down on the curb to catch her breath and hold the foot. When Lisa was ready, she stood, straightened her outfit, and shook off the pain before walking into her building. And on her way to the front door, her right foot managed to slip under her doormat. It didn't hurt, but it caught her off guard. What the hell was going on? "Lisa," she mumbled to herself. "Girl, you gotta be careful." The rest of her day was uneventful. She had a quiet evening in, snuggled up on the couch for a few hours, binge watching one of her shows while eating some leftovers. As her eyes grew heavy and as she worked up the will to get off the couch and head to bed, she received a text from Dr. Darby. "Hope you had a lovely day," he wrote, with a winky face. Ugh, what a perv. Lisa groaned as she rolled her eyes. She got up and left the phone on the bed as she prepared for bed. On her way to the bathroom, her right big toe managed to catch the bathroom tiles where they met the faux wood floor in the living room. There had never been a threshold strip on the floor to smooth out that extra quarter-inch of height caused by the tiles. And in the 3 years that she'd lived in this apartment, she'd never tripped on it until now. She felt it down to the bone as a dull ache, which slowly turned into a fireball of pain that took her breath away. She stumbled into the bathroom and leaned on the sink, biting her lip as she pounded her fist on the counter. When the pain subsided, she wiped the tears from her eyes and collected herself. It hurt when she put weight on the foot, but not so bad that she would consider making a doctor's appointment. With a real doctor, of course. She was able to brush her teeth and clean her face before carefully hobbling her way to bed, where she thought she was safe. In the night, she had a fitful sleep, dipping in and out of nonsense dreams as she struggled to rest. The room felt a little warm for her liking, but she was too tired to turn on the AC and opted to struggle through it. Her comfort was not aided by her cat, Rosie, who insisted on sleeping as close as possible to her. Lisa kept changing positions until she settled on her belly, which was unusual for her. But it allowed her foot to work its way out from under the comforter and feel cooler air. As the hours passed and the cat curled up on the small of her back, Lisa didn't realize that she was slowly working her way toward the edge of the bed, exposing more of her torso and leg to the relative chill of the night air. In her stupor, she moved over, inch by inch, until she was right up to the edge of the mattress. Then, at about 4 a.m., her right leg lost a war with gravity that she didn't know she was fighting, and slipped off the bed. Her right toe slammed right into the hardwood floor. Specifically, her big toe. The whole weight of her leg drove the tippy tip of the nail into the ground, tearing her away from a shallow sleep. Lisa immediately pushed herself off the bed, screaming bloody murder as her frightened cat ran up her back and used her scalp as a stepping stone to the nightstand. She howled into her black room, shouting out a long string of expletives that she didn't know she had in her. It was then that Lisa began to realize that her fortune had changed. She sat up in the bed and turned on the light. Then she squeezed the throbbing foot in her hand as heavy tears flowed. Not the trickle one gets from eating spicy food or bumping a funny bone, but real waterworks and sobs. Like one gets when it feels like the whole world is against you. Deep down, she knew that something was wrong. There was no going back to sleep now. She had some stern words for Dr. Darby, and wanted to get back to her phone, but she was terrified. She still felt some relative safety in the bed. Nothing could happen to her foot if she just stayed put. But was it safe, she wondered? After all, she had managed to injure herself in her sleep. Lisa decided that perhaps she could get across her apartment if she didn't walk. She carefully rolled out of bed, laid flat on her back, and used her arms to slide her body across the floor a few inches at a time. As she made her way out of the bedroom, Rosie watched her owner with blank perplexity until the cat decided to hop on her chest and go for a ride. "Oh, fuck you, Rosie," Lisa said as she struggled to breathe. "Not now." After sliding across the floor for a minute, she tipped her body to kick the cat off, and unwittingly kicked her foot in the air, bumping it right into a bookcase. "Fuck!" she cried out as she sat up and quickly scooted against the couch. She grabbed her phone and called Dr. Darby. After 3 rings, he picked up and responded with a groggy, "Hello?" "You piece of shit, Darby. What the hell did you do to me?" "Hi, Lisa. How did you sleep?" "What did you do?" "Let me ask you a question. Do you have $2,000? "Fuck you, Darby. Fuck your creepy face. And fuck your... Hello? Doctor?" He had hung up on her. Lisa seethed as she called him back. "Who's this?" he asked. "You know damn well who this is." "Oh, Lisa. Lisa. That rings a bell. I used to know Elisa. If I recall, she owed me some money." "Darby, you nasty little troll. I'll fuck you up, Darby. I want to say that I'd like to see you try. But what I really want to see is if it's possible for you to reach my house. Have a good one." He hung up again. "What? Darby? Darby?" Lisa shouted into her phone. She heard one of her neighbors banging on the wall, telling her to shut up. She sat up on the couch and hugged herself. She was shaking with rage. Her whole body ached, every muscle tensed as she rocked forward and back. But as she caught her breath, she felt the tension release, starting from her gut and spreading in all directions as she laid back on the couch. She felt something that she wasn't sure she'd ever felt before. The feeling of surrender. Lisa picked up her phone and accessed a payment app before sending Dr. Darby $2,000. 2 minutes later, he called her back. "Hi, Lisa. Feeling better?" "No," she sighed. "Not really." "Really? Nothing? Like a weight has been lifted off your conscience?" "My what?" Darby snickered. "Oh, that figures. Listen, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry," Lisa said as she put on her most remorseful tone. "I shouldn't have taken advantage of you. Can we start over? Can we fix this?" "Of course," Darby replied. "Oh, thank God." "But I'm not going to." "What? You fucking animal," she growled. Darby laughed maniacally over the phone. "Why are you doing this?" she sobbed. "Why? How? I don't even know how. How is this possible?" If you really don't know why at this point, I don't think any amount of explaining will help you. As for how, well, let me ask you a question, Lisa. She sat there trembling. She couldn't believe this was real. What do you know about demonology or the occult? What? What does that have to do with anything? I'm sure at some point in your life you've read a story or watched a horror movie about some naive dolt who tried to summon a demon from a mysterious book. Even if you don't think that's real, the idea had to come from somewhere. The truth is, though, it is based in reality. People have tried to do things like that, and there really are books that tell you how to summon demons. Strange old books from the Middle Ages with mysterious spells and unearthly art. Have you ever wondered where something like that would come from? Like, how would someone come up with shit like that? How would a normal person come up with a ritual to summon a demon or even come to believe that it was possible? Lisa was only half hearing him as she stared out the window, watching the sunrise. She was shaken and not fully present. When she didn't respond to him, Darby kept talking. It was the early Christian clergy who figured it out. The priests. Isn't that funny? People have a hard time believing that. After all, why would a priest want to summon a demon? Well, they were responsible for exorcising demons, of course. And in the process of learning their craft, they learned how to summon them as well. It's kind of inevitable if you think about it. To solve a problem, you often have to learn how to create the problem in the first place. When they figured it out, they wrote it down to share with their peers. And over time, that dangerous knowledge leaked out to a wider audience. And that is where demon summoning rituals come from. You see a similar process in many other professions. I promise you that your exterminator knows how to cause a roach infestation. Your plumber knows how to flood your basement. Your electrician knows how to burn your house down. And as for me, well, Dr. Darby knows how to make you cursed in the most specific way. You're a monster. Lisa finally replied. No, I'm just broke, and none of you cursed idiots ever pay me back, he seethed. It turns out that the kind of people who get themselves cursed are often selfish assholes who deserve it. You're very predictable copies of each other, and I've figured out how to get you all to pay up. But I've paid! You have to help me, she whined. Or else what? You'll call the cops? You'll sue me? You know damn well that there is nothing about what I do that is recognized by the law. And as far as the courts are concerned, I'm no different than a tarot card reader or a witch doctor. I can't be arrested for putting a spell on you, he laughed. And I can't be taken to small claims because I didn't remove a curse. You know this because that's why you were never going to pay me. Not without some real consequences. No, I gave you what you wanted. Not quite. I want a little something extra from you. Lisa gasped. In your dreams, you vile cretin. I wouldn't sleep with you for... She could hear Darby laughing over the phone. What are you laughing at? What is wrong with you? Oh, Lisa, you think so highly of yourself. But what's the saying? I wouldn't touch your toxic aura with a 10-foot pole. No, I want to make an example of you for my future customers. Lisa covered her mouth and began to cry, but couldn't respond. Would you like me to fix your continuity? Lisa nodded. She was so beside herself that she couldn't even vocalize her agreement. Lisa? Yes, she said. Please. Then it's real simple. All you have to do is walk down to my house, and I'll make you right as rain. What? She asked, incredulous. Just grab your little rock and walk on down here. No. Yes, Darby insisted. I'm sure you can make it. Fuck you, I'll drive. You really think that will work? You have a new destiny carved out in stone before you. It's a tunnel with no forks. No matter what you do or where you go, you're going to hurt your right foot over and over every single day until you die. Well, I suppose there is one fork in the path. You can come to my office. Lisa sat up in the couch. A sudden realization washed over her. And just so you know, Darby said, there are consequences for avoiding your fate. Oh, you... She replied with venom on her tongue. You have no idea. She stood and walked back to her bedroom, clipping her right foot on the leg of her couch. Fuck! What's that? Darby asked, having trouble getting around. Ugh! You bitch! Oh, fuck, that's awful, she said as she lowered her phone to her side and limped forward, waiting for the pain to subside. You silly bitch. She carefully watched her steps until she made it to her closet and slid open the door. And there on the ground, she saw the answer to all her problems. Darby's distant voice called to her until she brought the phone back to her ear. Don't you sweat it, Darby. I'll make it back to your office. You will? He asked. You sound confident. You think you're so smart, but your curse is a little too specific. I think there's a loophole. There isn't, unless you're... Wait, what are you doing? Lisa reached down and pulled a pair of military boots out of her closet. A while back, she had briefly dated a man from the Air Force who worked on planes. He had ghosted her after a few dates and never came back for the boots. Steel toe boots. You little shit. You thought you could make me come crawling back. Literally. I bet you thought you were going to see me crawling up your driveway on my mangled leg, but I figured it out, she said as she cradled the phone between her head and her shoulder and slipped on the boots. They were about a size and a half too big, but she could make it work. There's nothing your stupid curse can do to me, not with the proper footwear. Oh no, don't do that, Darby replied. I'm serious, that's a rotten idea. You're lying, she said as she laced up the boots. No, really, that's very dangerous. The universe has a tendency to overcompensate when cursed people try a loophole. Oh god, this is bad. Fuck off, Darby. Fuck you and fuck this pearl-clutching act. It's not gonna work. Darby sighed. Oh shit. I think I've taken this a little too far. You know what? I'll come to you. I can take my equipment to your place. Do you have a 220 outlet? Yeah, of course you do. Where do you live, Lisa? What? I'm not telling you where I live, you creep. Goodbye, doctor. I'll see you soon. Wait, please, Lisa? Lisa ended the call and pocketed the phone as she headed for the door. But she changed direction at the last minute and made a beeline for the kitchen. She was feeling a little weary and thought it would be a good idea to hydrate. She grabbed a glass from a cabinet and shut it a little too hard, which rattled a magnetic knife holder mounted on the wall. A very long kitchen knife slipped off, skidded across the counter before tumbling on her right foot. The pointy tip landed directly into the steel toe and stuck there for a second until gravity tipped it to the ground. She stood there in complete shock, staring at her unharmed foot. She laughed. She looked up at the ceiling as she began to cackle. Fuck you. I won. You're never going to hurt me again, she shouted as she grabbed her car keys and confidently strode toward the front door. Dr. Darby was puttering around his garage. He was trying to tinker with some project or another, but he wound up pacing up and down his garage. He had all of his equipment set up to help Lisa, but afterward he couldn't stay on track long enough to accomplish anything. He walked from one corner to the other, scratching his chin as he inspected unfinished work. But he kept thinking about Lisa. Where was she? It had been several hours since they spoke. And what condition would she be in when she arrived? Would she arrive? He felt bouts of guilt and anxiety that were deflated when he remembered exactly who he was dealing with. Anyone with eyes and ears could tell that she was a self-absorbed backstabber. She certainly deserved to get tumbled by the universe, but he knew what could happen if someone tried to outsmart a curse. Curses have a tendency to find a way. No matter what barriers you throw in their path, they will go to great extremes to reach their victims. And he wasn't sure if Lisa deserved that. As he was pacing around the garage, he heard a faint sound. At first, he thought it was the growl of a cat that was squaring off for a fight. It had that mixture of whine and growl. But to his surprise, the sound very slowly grew in volume. He tried to ignore it, but in time the anguished animal cry grew so loud that he wondered if it was in his driveway. Darby grabbed his garage door opener and hit the button. The motor hummed as the metal panel slid up 1 foot at a time. At first, he didn't know what he was looking at. When the garage door only had lifted a few feet, he saw a visceral mess that he couldn't identify. He was taken aback by the sight, and as the door pulled up a couple more feet, he could see that the mess was attached to legs and then a waist. And before long, he realized he was staring at Lisa. Her face was pale as she stared back at him, but she wasn't really looking at him, but rather through him, with a 1,000-yard stare. She was panting and sweating as her eyes twitched and her slack-jawed mouth moaned in agony. Darby took a few steps forward and looked down at her feet, or rather her foot. The right leg had a bloody, ragged edge at the ankle. Hanging by a thread was a mass of shredded skin, meat, and bone that one would never be able to identify as a foot if it weren't for a few turquoise painted nails. The mass was dragging behind her, but was so drained of blood and caked in dirt that there was no longer a blood trail. She was using a dead tree branch as a walking stick and relying on a makeshift tourniquet around her knee to keep the rest of her blood contained. Darby sighed and shook his head. He grabbed a phone from his lab coat, steadied it in the air with both hands, and took a picture of Lisa's mangled body and shell-shocked visage. Wow, that's going up in the garage. Lisa let out an incomprehensible moan. All right. I got what I wanted. Come on inside. You got the rock? Lisa gave him a weary, blank stare which twisted into a sorrowful grimace as she began to pat down her pockets. You forgot it, didn't you? Lisa began to moan, which turned into an ugly, weak cry, as if there were no tears left to cry out of her. She moved her walking stick a few inches at a time, slowly rotating her direction until she faced the street, and began her long walk home.